First tonight, we're following breaking news in Northeast Portland. A person walking in the Piedmont neighborhood has been hit and killed by a car. It happened on MLK, just north of Columbia Boulevard, around 6:30 tonight. The driver did stay at the scene and is talking with police. MLK was closed in the area for several hours, but opened up fully in the past 30 minutes. Thank you for joining us here at 11. I'm Laurel Porter.
I'm David Molko, and new tonight, we're taking a closer look into yet another report that confirms widespread misconduct in women's pro soccer for a decade, most notably within the Portland Thorns organization.
This comes on the heels of an investigation that prompted the firing of 2 team executives and Merritt Paulson putting the Thorns up for sale. Let's bring in Alma McCarty. And Alma, a lot of the findings and recommendations here seem disturbingly familiar.
Well, yes, they do. This report, commissioned by both the league and the Players Association, further confirmed what the so-called Yates report found when it was released back in October: widespread misconduct perpetuated by a toxic environment.
After a roller coaster of a year,
it's been a roller coaster, mainly going downhill.
Fans of the Portland Thorns hope the latest report into allegations and issues will lead to real change for players in this club and for the entire league. Gabby Rosas is part of the Rose City Riveters.
You can't just do whatever you want. You can't say whatever you want. You can't treat people however you want. That mentality needs to go away.
Wednesday's report comes a little more than 2 months after another high-profile investigation. In October, the Yates report found emotional abuse and sexual misconduct were systemic in the sport, spanning multiple teams. That included the Thorns organization. Investigators also ran into problems accessing documents and witnesses while working on this report. The new Covington report found much of the same to be true. The joint investigation team found, quote, that the underlying culture of the NWSL created fertile ground for misconduct to go unreported.
The culture of the NWSL that kind of enabled not just abuse to flourish, but to not be reported, is this culture of be grateful, be loyal, you're playing, and that's a gift. And Portland, I think, especially was able to use that to its advantage because for so long in this league, it was the team.
Meg Linehan is a senior writer with The Athletic, covering women's soccer. Her story highlighting the allegations against former Thorns coach Paul Riley sparked the current investigations. While he was head coach of the team, Riley allegedly sexually coerced players, provided alcohol to players and drank excessively with them, and made derogatory comments about players' weight and sexual orientation. The new Covington report found that the Thorns, U.S. Soccer, and the NWSL enabled Riley's coaching career for another 6 years for failing to be transparent about the allegations and findings of misconduct against Riley in 2015.
And there's a lot of finger pointing at who knew what and who would have been able to say more. But fundamentally, I still think that there is a failing that any of these people with knowledge of the investigation from 2015 could have at any point said more.
There's a lot more to this latest report, a full 128 pages of it with additional details into that misconduct and how the league plans to move forward. We'll have a link to it on KGW.com. Meantime, fans hope action will be swift with the 2023 season just around the corner. We've reached out to the team for comment, but have yet to hear back. David?
Alma McCarty with the update tonight. Thank you, Alma. And new at 11, amidst a second consecutive year of record homicides in Portland, an organization working to stop gun violence in the Rose City met tonight to hear from community members and to raise funds for their mission.
Because it's going to take more than just law enforcement or just government. It's those people that are out in the community that hear and see things that have to help facilitate peace.
Well, that is Pastor Corey Pritchett. He says the Better Portland group is focused on how neighbors can help each other. They want to create a de-escalation hotline to help people talk with those in their lives who might be involved in gun violence. They are also pushing for more mental health treatment options in the city. Just one community group there hoping to make an impact. And earlier today, Portland's leaders also addressed gun violence, along with a number of other public safety threats. The mayor and the Multnomah County DA took questions side by side in a media appearance that may have at least in part been about optics. Our Blair Best was there to press for solutions.
Also joining the mayor and DA today were Portland and Gresham police chiefs. Now, the main takeaway from today was that we will only see a change in the increased crime on our streets until the city, county, and local law enforcement all work together and collaborate. They're calling these levels of violent crime that we're seeing unacceptable. The group talked of how they're confronting a public defense crisis, citing the record number of homicides this year. They also talked of bringing back school resource officers to Portland Public Schools again in the wake of recent shootings. SROs were discontinued in the wake of the George Floyd murder. It's a controversial subject for parents and students, but the biggest issue for the DA is the need to invest in more prosecutors to get more criminals off the streets and keep them off the streets. While they're working together to address high-level crimes such as homicides, they're also focusing on smaller crimes affecting community members every day. You all speak of working together and creating safety for citizens. There are people, as you know, on the street openly doing drugs, shoplifting every day, and they're not concerned at all with being approached by law enforcement or getting into trouble. What will it take to change that narrative, and is it too late? Has it gone too far?
No, it's not too late. To change that narrative, this is what we're doing right here in front of you now, is we're talking about collaboration, how we're going to maximize our resources to interdict that type of behavior. So we can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? We are obviously working on a lot of violent crimes and a surge in our community and violence that we haven't seen before. But that doesn't mean that the small stuff can slide. And we're working together every single day to see how can we tighten up our processes, share information, and follow up on cases.
Portland Police also announced that next week they'll be hiring 14 more officers, bringing the department total to more than 800. And despite all of these challenges that they're facing, they continue to encourage people to report crimes to police. Blair Best, KGW News.
A victim's family is calling Governor Kate Brown's decision to commute all death row sentences an injustice. 17 people in Oregon will now serve life in prison without parole. We talked today with Penny Baker-Dubee. She says she feels hurt and betrayed. Christian Longo was married to Dubee's sister. He murdered her and their 3 young children. Now he's one of the inmates spared the death penalty. Penny found out when a state employee called her yesterday morning.
Before this happened, I did not have an opinion on the death penalty. I did not feel that that was my decision to make about anyone. After this happened, I have an opinion on the death penalty. Chris deserves to be dead for what he did. My family will never feel safe until Chris is no longer a part of this world.
Even before the governor's order yesterday, the death penalty had been effectively abolished in Oregon. A moratorium on executions has been in place since 2011, and no one has been executed in the state in 25 years. Governor Brown cited moral concerns when explaining her decision to commute those sentences, but also the cost. So we wanted to know what actually costs more, imprisoning someone for life or executing them. Pat Doris found out tonight on The Story.
A study from a few years ago from Lewis and Clark College shows that in Oregon, the death penalty is significantly more expensive for taxpayers than life in prison. The study's from 2016. It found that aggravated murder cases in which the prosecutors get the death penalty costs a lot more than aggravated cases where they don't get the death penalty or don't go after it. Death sentences handed down in Oregon cost taxpayers an average of about $2.3 million. Those other cases where they don't get the death penalty, they're about $1.4 million. So why is it so much more expensive? Well, Oregon's constitution requires a lengthy process of court proceedings and appeals in death penalty cases. In an aggravated murder case, a defendant cannot waive their right to trial by jury unless they plead guilty, and a jury trial just costs more money. Defendants are required to have an attorney who has a special certification in death penalty cases, and that costs more money too. Aggravated murder cases also include 2 trials. The first is for the jury to determine whether someone's guilty, and then the second is the penalty trial. In the penalty trial, the jury has a lot of work to do. They have to determine whether the murder was deliberate, if the defendant posed a continuing threat to society, and whether the defendant acts were unreasonable in response to provocation, and whether the defendant should receive a death sentence. For the death penalty to be assigned, all jurors have to agree on all 4 factors. But wait, it's not over yet. After a jury hands down a death sentence, that sentence automatically goes to the Oregon Supreme Court for review. The defendant can also continue to appeal the ruling to the Oregon Court of Appeals, the Oregon Supreme Court, the Federal District Court, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, even the U.S. Supreme Court. The process can go on for a long time, and all of those hearings and court filings add up.
You can watch the story each weekday at 6 o'clock right here on KGW for more in-depth looks into the big issues affecting our community. And catch up on our full report today on the death penalty sentence commutations on KGW.com.